welcome to IBC Podcast, the podcast where we take news from around the world and debate them, bringing our own opinions into the conversation as well as other people's that you may have never heard of. I am Mo and I'm joined by Lewis. The two topics we have today are the G7 has introduced a tax on international companies to stop them from avoiding taxes and finding loopholes in the system. And the other story is the UK has delayed Freedom Day, as the day has been called, of complete relaxation of all restrictions on COVID. It has been delayed from June 21st originally to now July 19th, supposedly. Now, on to the first story. This could be groundbreaking news, I'd say. A global tax on companies.
Yeah, so it was a part of the G7 summit. The main thing they wanted to do was, specifically, when they say they're taxing corporations, it's, specifically taxing corporations, so large companies. Because, as you can see, they're mass polluters, and they play a huge role in the climate change. So, I think it's a good thing that they got this tax, because right now there are taxes for big corporations, but there's huge loopholes. So, what we had before was a tax system where it was by the country. And of course, countries have different rates of tax and that.
Yeah. Basically,
a good example is Richard Branson, the CEO of Virgin Media. Or Virgin, the brand. To avoid tax, he literally bought his own islands so he doesn't have to pay taxes. It's not really tax evasion, but it's tactical and a bit scammy, I think.
Yeah.
But because this is a global tax, meaning the whole entire world has to listen to it, has to pay. So there's no country choosing to do it or not. The whole world has to do it, which I think is a really good thing. Meaning, Virgin, like Microsoft, Apple cannot get away with stuff like this anymore.
Yeah.
There's no loophole possible, really, with this. And I think it's a really good plan. Also, to tackle climate change, these companies would then... Because if you think about it, they'll be taxed on stuff such as the use of, or the amount of carbon dioxide that's burned into the atmosphere. They will be taxed a lot more if they burn a lot more of that. So they'll try and find ways to reduce it. Now, companies such as Microsoft, for example, you would find corporations, they don't pay the tax, but they do a bit for the environment, but I feel like they don't do enough. Now, Microsoft's the only exception I would say, is they already do a lot for the environment, in my opinion. They're always...
Yeah.
But that's been a push by Bill Gates. Other companies, such as Google and Apple, no, they don't care, to be honest.
Yeah, this is, as I said before, it's groundbreaking. We've never actually, as far as I'm aware, the whole world has never had one tax on, that everyone has to follow. And it's not, and another good thing is that it's unlike the United Nations human rights, this one isn't optional. Every country has to follow it. So in that way, there is no loopholes whatsoever.
So, what I also like about this is because the main thing, the reason I think this G7 thing is so successful, is China and Russia are part of it.
Yeah.
Specifically, I'm focusing on China. Them being a part of it, as you know, they're the second most polluted country, in regards to CO2 emissions.
Yeah.
So the fact that we now have the two biggest superpowers almost in this CO2 emissions, it shows this is the closest, and I'm always going to say this is the closest the world has probably ever come to an agreement.
Yeah.
Would you say? Because this is the closest I've seen a deal almost be struck with debt. It's the first time I've gone over. It's the first time I've heard of something where, of course, there's been deals before, like treaties and that. But this is the first time China specifically has agreed without any force or action had to be taken. They 100% agree with what we're trying to do. Which is the first time I've heard China do stuff like that.
Yeah. Do you think though, would there still be ways of getting past this?
At the start, I think there will be.
Yeah.
But I generally have quite a strong belief in this. Because again, it's not it's not a national tax, it's a worldwide tax.
Yeah.
I don't think I've heard of a worldwide tax before. I think that might be the first one.
Yes, first I've ever heard of.
Never heard of a worldwide tax before, so that might be new. I think that itself, like, we can't really judge it at the moment because it's new. As we know, we've never really seen much of a global tax before, but I think it'll be quite interesting.
We haven't really seen this, so you can't really judge, and it's difficult to judge short-term and long-term effects of this, because usually what you do is, you look at similar things that have happened in the past and try make it seem like it's probably predict that it's most likely going to be something similar to what happened before. But with this one, well, this hasn't happened before, so how are you meant to predict it? What's going to happen?
Yeah.
So, it could destroy the world. At the same time, it could bring in loads of money that could help save the world.
And it's a time where you see these large corporations taking advantage of stuff. You do see that a lot at the moment. But it's good that with the countries, the leaders of the world are coming together and actually tackling this. G7 at itself is a brilliant idea. And I thought it'd be a really bad idea at first, because I thought, no, never going to happen. How would the world agree? But when China said that they would happily be a part of it, I thought, 100% this is such a good idea, because it's actually working. I thought originally I was really hesitant because I thought it was never going to work. Because the example is, I thought
China... It seemed a very extreme idea.
I thought China or Russia were never actually going to agree. So, when I heard that they agreed, I thought this is going to actually work really well. And we've never seen this at all, ever, in known history, that this collaboration almost to this level has ever come together to tackle such a specific issue. But it could pave the way, can't it? As you see, this is just one issue, climate change and pollution, because it's a big issue. It's something all these countries face together. We all live it together because we're all in one world. I think it'll pave the way for future projects. So, for example, we want to tackle climate change, so the world comes together, and I think we'd have more of a chance of tackling it than we had before. But then, for example, I know it would never be tackled for a long time, but for instance, if we need to tackle another problem, kind of COVID or like another virus in a way, if we all come together like this, it would be a lot easier. The world would have been a lot easier if we just all come together.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not like that. If you think about this in terms of UK politics, obviously we have austerity in this country, which has really changed what our country has become. How do you think that's going to be impacted now that this global tax has been introduced?
That's a good question. I don't think it would be impacted that much, because not at all, most to the fact. It's not exactly like people are going to be against it, because again, this is not a singular country's issue. When it's a singular country's issue, you're going to find the countries are going to start arguing. For instance, COVID. When the virus came out, because of the president, Donald Trump, when he heard the virus, he immediately said China virus. He said he immediately, to the point, doesn't care about it, just wanted to find out how it started, which I understand. But it's not good when it's happening. Do it after, for example.
Yeah.
But because this is a big collaboration project, and because it's an issue faced in every single country, it will 100%, I think, to the point, be a lot more successful and not any hostility, because there's not really anything hostility to be about it, isn't it?
Yeah. With austerity, with this tax, I think it could go one or two ways for the UK. Either one, which this option is probably least likely considering the government. The government used this extra money to pay for social services and everything like that. How they should do. Or two, they'll keep all the money to themselves and act like nothing's changed.
Yeah.
That's how I go.
So it's interesting with this global tax. I believe it would be the only fair way to split around the money. But yeah, again, it's a loophole almost. They tax these big corporations, right? But who gets the money? And then when you do get the money, what are you going to do with the money? If you take the money, right, from these corporations because they're polluting the atmosphere, and then go spend them on factories, that's not solving the problem, is it?
Yeah.
So a global tax would work. It's just the problem is what are we gonna do with the money? Because in a way, whatever. This is not a tax for money for the world. This was never ever a thing which was for the world, like for economies. This was not for the economy. This was, they taxed them because they wanted to reduce the amount of carbon dioxide. Because imagine if you had to pay millions in your corporation for factories. But if instead of paying them, all you have to do is cut back on a few factories, corporations would do that. I'm pretty certain they would do that because it's profit that they're losing then. So
Yeah.
I think the challenge is going to be who gets the money and mainly what they're going to do with the money. Because this, again, I think they said it, that it's not about the money. The tax is there because the corporations care about money. So if you take that away, then they'll care. But this thing is not about money. They don't care. The world doesn't care about money at the moment, almost, to the point. They don't care about making the world doesn't care about making money from this scheme. They care about the effects of CO2 and that cutting back, which is a big factor, and I think that's a really, really good thing. But we'll have to see how it plays out.
Yeah, we need to be very selective of what we spend it on, otherwise we'd be hypocrites. Any last thoughts?
No, I think that's it. I think we said them all.
Yeah, alright. It's moving on to our second story now, about Freedom Day being delayed. I am very mixed on this, Lewis. How about you?
Well, yeah, same with me. I am mixed on both sides of this because you have to look at both sides of the story. People want to get out of lockdown as quick as possible, but then you have to think about it in a lot more detail. You can go out of lockdown, but then if we go out too soon, cases are going to rise. We're going to go back in lockdown. There's no point if we go out.
Yeah.
Or we could delay it another month, and then we won't have to go back into another lockdown. It's whatever one.
Yeah.
If you just ask people that, they would probably pick the second option.
Yeah. I'd say most of the cases of COVID most of them are just children who aren't even eligible for the vaccine.
Yeah.
So
they're
more statistically likely to recover from it.
They're not hospitalising. That is what the aim is with the cases, is that we don't mind if people get it and just have a little common cold. It's when people get it, have severe symptoms and die from it. That's what we don't want.
Yeah. But if it's just like, oh, you have a little cold, then I feel like it would be alright to get out of lockdown.
Yeah. It's
what's exactly stopping us and then
everyone's like, oh, we're probably going to go out of lockdown and then back into another lockdown. In my opinion, no. This is the last lockdown. Because the difference between this lockdown compared to all the other lockdowns is we have a vaccine. In the terms of viruses, that is huge. Huge, I tell you. A vaccine is huge. That means there's no need to go into another lockdown probably next time.
Yeah.
So it's not, lockdowns are not good. They're not good for, no one likes lockdowns first of all, and they're not good for the economy too. They're not good for anything really, lockdowns, apart from stopping the spread of a virus.
Yeah. I'd say the vaccine progress has been really good. To think that 6 months ago we had only just introduced it, and now we're about to vaccinate. We're vaccinating 18 plus now. It's
gone so far. Like, even if you think about it, this time last year we didn't even have a vaccine. This time last year we didn't even have one. We only got the vaccine at the start of this year. We are already at the over 18s.
Yeah, and then in a couple months' time, it'll be people like us getting the vaccine, and then that'll be most of the COVID cases gone.
Yeah, COVID will be history. I'm going to say next year, everything will be back to normal. We'll still talk about COVID. COVID is going to be talked about for years. It
will be quite a long time until we get back to normal.
I think, personally, next year, it's going to be talked about for years to come. Years, I tell you. Years. It's going to be talked about a lot. But next year is definitely going to be the day where it's all going to be back to normal, I think.
Yeah, the difference between COVID compared to, like, Ebola or the Spanish flu, the difference between that and Ebola is Ebola, it didn't hit the whole world. It hit, like, a couple countries in Africa and a few other cases.
The reason for
and then with the Spanish flu, that was before all, like, TV and, you know, social media and that existed. So this is going to be talked about for a really long time.
The reason Ebola didn't spread is because it doesn't like cold weather.
Yeah.
It won't like Britain, because the virus would hate it here. The weather's ghastly, the queues are long. If I was Ebola, I'll go to Morocco.
In the words of Russell Howard.
But the Spanish flu is a good comparison, in my opinion. It's the last pandemic we know of, but it showed us, this virus is going to be a really good showing point of how far medicine's come, if you think about it.
Yeah.
We have gone from the Spanish flu, where we had no lockdowns, millions of people died, to COVID. Yes, millions of people did die, but not as many as the Spanish flu. And that is what we need to focus on. Not as many people died in the Spanish flu. Then people go on and say, well, the COVID wasn't as contagious, wasn't as deadly as the Spanish flu. We don't know. We don't know if it's more deadly than the Spanish flu, because we have ways to treat it. If we had the Spanish flu in the modern days, it probably won't be as deadly. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and the pure thing is what is more deadly, we can't compare. It's incomparable to say which one's more deadly, because we just don't know. We're not going to infect everyone with the Spanish flu to find out, because that's just not... That's
dumb.
Yeah, that's just not philosophical at all.
The language.
But the way COVID's gone is, I even believe COVID will probably be studied in like history in schools.
Yes.
I'm gonna say I'll give it probably I'll give it maybe a few, probably about 50 years. Then you'll start seeing it actually appear, because it's a big thing we need to learn about. It's stuff like this, because in our lifetime, theoretically, it would never happen again. In the way nature goes, it would probably never happen again in our lifetime. But we're making history right here.
Yeah. If you think about it, if it's not going to be talked about in 50 years, 400 years from now, it's going to be all over history classes.
Yeah, but then you got to say 400 years from now, was there anything
We'd
different?
all be...
Would there have been a bigger virus or that? It's history almost. In a way, it's kind of nature repeating itself, because the last virus was 100 years ago. So...
Yeah.
But the way we are going with the easing of lockdown restrictions, I see why people hate it. I see why they get frustrated, because it's been over a year worth of lockdowns now. So I get it. But there's...
Yeah.
I would rather have that, because remember I have said this, this new lockdown is a reassurance. It's reassurance rather than a necessity. There's a rise in cases, but that's not the reason, the main reason why we're delaying the lockdown. The main reason is it's a reassurance. We're reassuring that there won't be a rise in cases that can then affect the vaccine handout, which is what we don't want to happen. We don't want people to be denied the vaccine because they've ran out, for example, or cases are too high, they have to close these places. We do not want that. We do not want our vaccine distribution to be disrupted. Anyway, I'm going on to what we would do with the vaccine. So we actually ordered too many, but that was because the government came prepared. We will give everyone in this country 2 doses of vaccine, possibly 3. They're still discussing that. We're then going to go help, which I 100% agree with this, and I like this idea. We are then 100% going to help the poorer countries, which, in my opinion, that's really, really cool. Because
they're getting ripped off by the vaccine prices. So why not give them our extra doses?
It's also a good way to look at it. Right now, whenever there was a virus come out that we developed a vaccine for, the only places right now, for example, polio, we have a vaccine for that. You don't find polio anywhere really in the UK or America, in developed countries. The only place you find it is in undeveloped countries. The reason for that is vaccines are too expensive, hence why UNICEF, you can pay given vaccines. But if we go after these poor countries before these richer countries, we can then vaccinate the poor people, so we don't need to. So, because remember, they will struggle to get ventilators, for example. A rich country, they would have loads of ventilators. They would have no problem with the hospital treatment. It's the poor countries that would struggle with the hospital treatment. So if we give them the vaccines, there'll be less people going to hospitals and less money basically for them, because they don't have the money to be able to. So they would have loads of people dying. But then if you think about it in the long run, I don't know with this virus, but I can kind of almost see it get eradicated at the state that people are gonna, because it's caused so much disruption that is probably going to the world's gonna come together and we're gonna try and eradicate it. But hey, we're gonna have to see how it pans out. There's only ever been one virus, a smallpox virus, that's ever been eradicated. So that took a lot of money, but hey, it's worth it at the end of the day.
Yeah, and back to the Freedom Day. Some people are quite disappointed in the government, because remember back in February when Boris Johnson said this plan was something along the lines of they won't change the plan, basically. That was the news. That was the news.
I'm pretty certain that was the news. So that he said it won't be any earlier. He never said that the plans won't change. He literally said the plans will probably change if the cases rise. As we saw, the cases rise, so the plans did change. We have now seen. He never said. The only thing he said that will never happen is we'd move the days forward. We would never have an earlier days than these days. But he did say there is a strong possibility we will delay it, which we did because of rising cases. So the main story, I think the news picked up, they kind of tweaked a lot of what Boyce said. So in fairness to Boyce, he didn't actually say that.
Yeah, look, I'm not sure about you, but I sort of when I heard of the plan, I was thinking, I'll believe it when I see it. And to be fair to the government, they've delivered.
Yes, believe it when you see it. I was along the lines of that, but I was pretty certain. It was quite funny because back in when we went into our first lockdown, they were talking about international travel. We were going to go on holiday to France, and everyone was like, "Oh, we're never going to be able to do it because of this lockdown. We'll just go on for ages." Actually, I was the only one from the start. It never changed my mind to say we'll be able to go on holiday, and we did. We did go on holiday because we had that 2-week gap of where it was off the list and there was no quarantine thing. It was that weird gap we managed to get on holiday. Yeah. But I remember saying it, and I said the same thing with this one. This will be the last lockdown, and I'm still gonna say it. I'm pretty near enough 100% certain we will not go back in another lockdown, but that does not stop it happening. Something could happen, like a new mutation, the vaccine doesn't seem to work in the long term. That is what we don't want to happen. But what will be interesting is, like we were talking with the G7 summit, it's the world coming together to tackle a specific issue. I can see that happening once they've done the climate change. When they've got the plan in and they're all set, they're going to start, I think, looking at COVID. Now, what America's done, they're getting a lot lower on cases of the vaccine. They're actually doing okay at the moment now on vaccine distribution. It's just they distribute it very, very differently. I've noticed in other countries they distribute it completely different to how the UK distributes it. And I think how the UK distributes it is among the population has been a lot better than other countries. Age is always priority, which I love that other countries have been doing it on money or location. That's what they've been doing theirs on, which is not a very good idea because that's a bit unfair. But age, it's always, they started from the oldest because they're the most vulnerable and the most people that are going to die, to youngest who are probably not going to die. But they remember at the oldest, they also done people with health conditions. So I thought it was a really good plan they done. And I have full trust in this 19th of July, and I think it'd be for the better that it's been delayed.
Yeah, I'd say, compared to the other lockdown, this plan seemed more robust and more organised. So I did have more confidence in it than I did from the first lockdown. But yeah, any last thoughts?
Yeah, so with the first lockdown, we literally went out straight away almost. With this one, we are slowly going out with the steps. So I have a lot more trust in this, to be honest. Even when saying it, I have a lot more trust. But apart from that, I don't really have much to say, to be honest, on this. It's really good, in my opinion, that they delayed it. But other people, of course, you have to look at both sides of the argument. Other people, no, it's not their best.
Yeah, well, that brings the end to this episode of IBC Podcast. To everyone watching, I hope you have enjoyed. On behalf of myself, Lewis, and everyone here at the IBC, we wish you all a very good day. Goodbye for now.
Bye.